The event will showcase the new results of the third-party monitoring project in Uzbekistan, which is the sixth largest cotton producer in the world. This report is the final cotton harvest report on child and forced labor in Uzbekistan of the TPM project. This project is supported by the World Bank, the United States government, the European Union, Switzerland, and Germany. This project has been operational since 2015, and today's findings of the 2021 harvest is based on 11,000 interviews with cotton pickers and has some quite amazing results. I would encourage you to listen to the speakers who are there on the ground. The government, which has taken the political will and decision to move forward with addressing forced and child labor in the cotton harvest. And we've seen some amazing results directly and indirectly. To make note, there seems to be a movement towards collaboration and social dialogue, where we see that the minimum wage has been consulted not only with the government, but by the trade unions and the employers in Uzbekistan. We have also observed an emerging trend of collective bargaining at the grassroots level. So I believe we are at a very unique time here with the project. At this time, I'd like to turn over the floor to my colleague, Ms. Olga Koliva. She is the director and the director of the office in Moscow, the ILO Decent Work Technical Team and Country Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. At this time, Olga, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Kevin, not least for bringing us together for this important meeting. Dear Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear partners, ladies and gentlemen, let me greet you on behalf of the ILO team for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. I would like to stress, to echo Kevin in stressing the importance of today's event. The ILO work on support to Uzbekistan on eradication of child labor and forced labor has gone through years, and I would like to compliment the government and to congratulate them and the social partners on remarkable progress which we all are witnessing, and to which I hope we will be giving even more solid evidence today. Together with our tripartite constituents in Uzbekistan, we are organizing a comprehensive event on ILO cooperation with Uzbekistan on the 31st of March this year, to which you are cordially invited, where not least the TPM project team would present the full report on its findings of the last year season. But already now, I think we dare to say that a huge job and remarkable progress has been achieved by the government and our social partners. Implementing the fundamental principles and rights at work in Uzbekistan paved the way for the ILO broader cooperation with the country on basically all aspects of the ILO mandate. This is an important feature of today's cooperation between Uzbekistan and ILO. And I would like to stress that our team in Moscow, Tashkent, Washington, D.C. stands ready to, in future, also provide support on all those directions on which we will be working with our tripartite constituents in Uzbekistan. Thank you, Kevin.
Olga, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your additional words in outlining how the project has worked and there's so many actors that have been involved in this. Today's program will be in three parts. We will have keynote speeches first by Ms. Tanzila Narbayeva, the chairperson of the Senate of Uzbekistan and the chairperson of the National Commission on Combating Human Trafficking and Forced Labor. This will be followed by Ms. Anna Birda, who is the Vice President for Europe and Central Asia of the World Bank, and Mr. Guy Ryder, the Director General for the ILO. I'm told that the World Bank Vice President is running slightly late, so we'll change the order to Guy Ryder and then the Vice President. The second component will be the survey results. Mr. Jonas Astrup, who is the ILO Chief Technical Advisor for the third-party monitoring in Uzbekistan, will be presenting the top-line results of the survey. And then Mr. Shukrat Ganev, who is a human rights defender and lawyer in Uzbekistan and has been working on this project for quite some time. We will then close with a word from the countries that have been supporting this. We are looking for the ambassadors for the United States to Uzbekistan, Mr. Daniel Rosenblum, the ambassador for the European Union, Ms. Charlotte Adrienne, the ambassador of Switzerland to Uzbekistan, Mr. Konstantin Obolensky, and then the head of mission, Embassy of Germany to Uzbekistan, Ms. Alice Wolkin. At this time, I'm going to ask my colleague to please play the video of Ms. Tanzila Narbayeva.
Звука нет.
I'm sorry, for our colleagues in Tashkent, we cannot hear the audio. Over.
В рамках реализации стратегии действий по 5 приоритетным направлениям развития Узбекистана, которая была реализована в 2017-2021 годах,
Could I ask our colleagues to restart the video, please? Thank you.
Уважаемые участники сегодняшней встречи, уважаемые генеральные, госпожа Владимир Владимировна, госпожа Ольга Владимировна Николаева, госпожа Дмитрия Владимировна, буду уже несколько лет, когда мы можем с гордостью сказать, что в рамках реализации стратегии действий по 5 приоритетным направлениям развития Узбекистана, которая реализована в 2017-2021 годах, решение президента Республики Узбекистан. Всех сфер жизни государства и общества. Системная работа по обеспечению прав человека. Реформирование национальной экономики, в частности, меры по либерализации внешней торговли, налоговой и финансовой политики. Повышение заработной платы, оказание значительного влияния на сокращение использования приоритетных труда. И полному искоренению стратегии по развитию сельского хозяйства такие важные меры, как полный переход на кластерный мир сельского хозяйства. На сегодняшний день в нашей стране действует 122 сельскохозяйственных кластера. Этих предприятий находится 100% содержательного на сегодняшний день года. Организация процесса выращивания за счет использования уборочных машин около 12% соотношение составляло в 2020 году 8,5%.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ms. Narabayeva, Chairperson of the Senate of Uzbekistan. At this time, it's my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Anna Bioda, the Vice President of the World Bank for Europe and Central Asia. Madam Bioda, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so very much, and I hope that you can hear me well. And let me start really by wishing everyone in Uzbekistan a very good afternoon, and of course a good morning for you who are joining from the Washington, D.C. time frame. I'd like to also acknowledge Madame Narbayeva. Very nice to see you on the screen through the video. Mr. Ryder, ambassadors of the US, European Union, and Switzerland, partners of the ILO, representatives from the government of Uzbekistan, and distinguished guests. I'm really honored to participate in today's event and would really like to thank the ILO for inviting me to say a few words. Over the past 12 months, we have witnessed a series of international policy developments which speak to the political commitment of the government of Uzbekistan to eradicate forced labor and to the success of Uzbekistan's landmark cotton sector reforms. First, Uzbekistan has been upgraded in the US State Department's 2021 Trafficking in Persons report. Uzbekistan has also achieved Generalized System of Preference, GSP+, with the European Union, and Uzbekistan is the first country in the world to achieve GSP status with the UK. Such developments are indicative of the important social and economic transformation taking place in Uzbekistan. As international development practitioners, it is really gratifying to bear witness to these developments and to partner with the government of Uzbekistan in this process. The Multi-Donor Trust Fund for the Support Program for Socially, Environmentally, and Financially Sustainable Cotton Production in Uzbekistan, which is implemented by the World Bank in close collaboration with the ILO, and is based on generous contributions from the European Union, Switzerland, the United States, and Germany, has been one of the key vehicles instrumental for supporting these reforms. Let me stress that the World Bank does not condone forced labor of any form and takes reports of such incidents so very seriously. To mitigate the risks of child and forced labor, the World Bank Group has been working closely with Uzbek authorities to carry out critical reforms aimed at eliminating the root causes of forced labor. These reforms include reduction of the state's role in agriculture and modernization and diversification of the country's vast agricultural sector, where we also are partnering with the government and providing finance, technical assistance, as well as advisory support. The Multi-Donor Trust Fund supported the creation of the third-party monitoring of the cotton harvest, which ILO has been implementing since 2015. The Trust Fund has also supported the strengthening of the national feedback mechanism, capacity building of the Labor Inspectorate, the Federation of Trade Unions, local civil society activists, prosecutors, and the media, and carried out awareness-raising activities to prevent forced labor across the country. In parallel, the IFC, our sister organization, has been promoting sustainable private sector investments in Uzbekistan's cotton production since 2015. Investment by the IFC and also EBRD in Indorama is a first step toward demonstrating that cotton can be produced in Uzbekistan following good environmental and social principles, and will hopefully open up Uzbekistan's market for sourcing by global brands, which the World Bank can in turn support. When the Multi-Donor Trust Fund was established in 2015, we could never have anticipated witnessing the elimination of systemic forced labor in such a short time. The government embracing such an ambitious reform agenda has also really exceeded expectations, given the complexity of such reforms that are involved. The Multi-Donor Trust Fund is closing in May. We have confidence that the Labor Inspectorate and civil society activists will continue to monitor labor conditions in cotton picking, and that the government will continue to investigate complaints received through the national feedback mechanism and to prosecute offenders. We also have confidence that the improvements in labor standards and the broader environmental and business reforms will help to attract responsible multinational apparel companies, which can help expand economic opportunities for millions of Uzbeks, including women. The World Bank Group will continue working with the government of Uzbekistan, in partnership with ILO, local and international civil society organizations, and international donor partners to help build an agricultural and textile and garment manufacturing sector where workers' labor rights are fully respected. We congratulate the government of Uzbekistan, civil society activists, and partners for the phenomenal results you will hear about shortly. And with this, I would like to thank you again for including me. It's really a great pleasure to be here. Back over.
Ms. Bierda, thank you very much for your kind comments and for your support for the work that's being done in Uzbekistan. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce a video statement by the ILO's Director General, Mr. Guy Ryder. The floor is Mr. Ryder's.
Excellency Chairperson Narbayeva, World Bank Vice President Bierda, Excellencies, workers and employers representatives of Uzbekistan, dear friends. Thank you for being part of this event to present the results of the ILO's 2021 third-party monitoring of child and forced labour during the cotton harvest in Uzbekistan. The ILO has been engaged in this partnership for 7 years, and at the outset, let me thank all who have been involved over that period, the government and the social partners of Uzbekistan, those who have provided financial support for the programme, and all those who have accompanied this undertaking, including civil society and human rights defenders. Our collaboration has yielded good results because after 7 years, this year's report shows that Uzbek cotton is free from systematic child labour and from systematic forced labour. We estimate that approximately 2 million children have been taken out of child labour and 500,000 adults out of forced labour. All of this since the ILO's monitoring started back in 2015. By any standard, these are truly remarkable results, and I congratulate all concerned for them. The process we have been through has not been without risks, nor has it been without its critics. But my view has been that it was right for the ILO to engage in it with our Uzbek and our international partners. And let me also say that this illustrates the value of an integrated approach founded on labour standards, using dialogue and tripartite action in a spirit of mutual respect, driven by political will, supported by effective multilateral cooperation, and with the valuable contributions of human rights defenders, civil society, the media, and other key actors. And it shows that when we join our efforts around a common cause, so much can be achieved. We've also seen other positive developments. For the first time, the minimum wage for cotton pickers was established through tripartite consultation, and the ILO monitoring also recorded an emerging trend of collective bargaining of wages at the grassroots level. As a result, many textile clusters paid their pickers well above the minimum wage. And we encourage Uzbekistan to pursue the further improvement of the labour market by applying international labour standards, and we stand ready to support those efforts. Indeed, when I was in Uzbekistan in 2018, President Mirziyoyev made clear his wish to broaden the reform process and cooperation with the ILO. Uzbek employers told me of their commitment to develop textile clusters as a major source of decent jobs, and the Federation of Trade Unions demonstrated their contribution to monitoring the cotton harvest and to move forward from there. And human rights activists who have been inspirational for change so far called for us to go further. And there is now an opportunity for Uzbekistan to realise its goal of moving up the value chain and to create millions of decent full-time jobs in textile and garment manufacturing. And this can be supported through responsible sourcing of textiles and of garments from Uzbekistan. The ILO is ready to support this process, and I'm pleased to confirm that at the request of our constituents in Uzbekistan, we are currently conducting a feasibility study for a Better Work programme in their country. That Better Work programme, like the third-party monitoring programme, is a joint initiative of the ILO and the World Bank Group, and I want to place on record the ILO's real appreciation for that partnership. Once again, let me thank the government of Uzbekistan and its social partners and the group of donors who have made our work on the monitoring programme possible: the World Bank, the European Union, the United States, Switzerland and Germany. Thank you for your support and for your trust. The results bring a rich potential for a new beginning in Uzbekistan, a new beginning of collective action to achieve decent work for all. And you can count on the ILO's support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director General, for your kind and inspiring words. At this time, we are getting to the point of the program where the real information is coming from. I would now like to introduce Mr. Jonas Astrup, the Chief Technical Advisor of the Third Monitoring Project, who will speak about the top-line results, and then followed by Shukrat Ganeev, the Human Rights Defender, on his experiences as a national in Uzbekistan and the work that's been taking place to date. Jonas, the mic is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody, depending on where you are. My name is Jonas Astrup. I'm leading the ILO third-party monitoring project in Uzbekistan. I'm Tashkent-based, and I've been living and working in Uzbekistan for the last 5 years. The cotton harvest in Uzbekistan is the world's largest recruitment effort, with just under 2 million people picking cotton every year from September to November. And the ILO has been monitoring the cotton harvest for child labor since 2013 and for child labor and forced labor since 2015 under an agreement with the World Bank. 2021 was another special year. We all felt it and we were all impacted. But what happens when 2 million people are recruited for work during the second year of a global pandemic? What was the impact on child labor, the prevalence of forced labor, and on working conditions? And what does it mean for you as a diplomat, as a policymaker, a trade unionist, or a civil society activist, or as a business person? Is Uzbek cotton now free from child labor and forced labor? Do the reforms continue to deliver results? And what are the next opportunities? And can you source textiles and garments responsibly from Uzbekistan in 2022? These are just some of the questions I will try and answer over the next 5 minutes. So basically, the ILO third-party monitoring comes down to 3 key issues: credibility, results, and recommendations. Let me start with the credibility. We conducted over 11,000 interviews during the 2021 cotton harvest. We used a mix of qualitative and quantitative questionnaires, covering all provinces and all districts of the country. We work with an independent social enterprise with a team of 17 civil society monitors, an equal mix of men and women. These are truly independent activists, which we have worked with over the last 3 to 4 years. They use ILO standards, and we have involved them in the development of the TPM methodology and the analysis of the data. You will hear from Shukrat Ganeev in a few minutes. We had full and unhindered access to the feedback mechanisms of the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations, as well as the Federation of Trade Unions. We closely followed the investigations by over 400 labour inspectors, and we kept track of every single case, including the punishment of perpetrators. The 2021 ILO third-party monitoring methodology achieved independent review board approval to ensure it is scientifically and ethically sound. Okay, so what were the results of the 2021 monitoring? Andrea, if you could put up the first slide, please. So in this year's harvest, 13% of the working age population in Uzbekistan participated in the cotton harvest. 2/3 of the pickers are women and 1/3 are men. In the 2021 cotton harvest, we saw a trend of slightly more men picking cotton compared to previous years. 81% of the pickers were from rural areas and 19% from urban areas. That was the same as previous year. On average, each picker participated in the harvest for 24 days, and the average total wage received by a picker in 2021 was 1.63 million Uzbek soums. And I'll convert that and tell you that it's approximately $175. And to make that, to contextualize that, I can tell you that that is the monthly salary of, for example, a teacher in Uzbekistan. The ILO did not find systematic child labor in the 2021 cotton harvest. There were isolated cases, of course, at the local level, but we observed a continued robust effort by the government to completely eliminate all risks of child labor. Next slide, please. The ILO did also not observe any systematic forced labor during the 2021 cotton harvest. In fact, as you can see from the chart in front of you, the wages for cotton pickers continue to increase, and the prevalence of pickers experiencing some form of coercion not only continued to decline, but the eradication of forced labor accelerated in 2021 to the point where only 1% of cotton pickers experienced or perceived coercion. We're at a stage now where it really has become quite challenging to accurately identify and measure the prevalence of forced labor in the cotton harvest. Not only are the number of cases getting very low, but the nature of the cases are also changing. And if you analyze the 1%, you will find that most of those cases relate to issues of perceived threats or perceived negative consequences if you were to decline participating in the harvest. Many of these cases relate to recipients of social benefits that are approached by the Public Employment Service or in some cases by Mahala representatives. This adds complexity from a monitoring perspective because, number one, the Public Employment Service is often located in the same building as the Mahala, which is the local community authority, and consequently, people may not always be able to distinguish clearly between the two. Another layer of complexity is that people have legal rights to some social benefits, and threatening to remove or reduce those benefits would certainly clearly constitute forced labor. However, for unemployment benefits, the picture becomes less black and white. And finally, as I already mentioned, in many cases, people report about perceived negative consequences rather than direct threats. I think I may already have gone into a little bit too much detail here, but I just wanted to get the point across that the remaining 1% are not all clear-cut forced labor cases. This is, of course, interesting for academics and for people like us who work on these issues every day. But in terms of making informed policy or business decisions, we need to recognize that in no country in the world will we ever get to exactly 0%. And it would perhaps be unrealistic to have that expectation here. Just like, for example, full employment doesn't mean 0% unemployment. Systemic forced labor has been eradicated in Uzbekistan. And I know that ordinary Uzbeks across the country can feel the positive impact of the reforms. And how do I know that? Well, because we spoke with 11,000 ordinary Uzbeks. And the graph in front of you reflects their experience and their reality. You could say that the ILO monitoring gives a voice to the pickers. And on that note, I'd like to also highlight that in the 2021 cotton harvest, we noticed several positive new developments which point to an emerging trend of increased democratization of the labor market in Uzbekistan. For the first time, the minimum wage was established using a tripartite consultation. And we also observed several instances, many in fact, of cotton pickers engaging in collective bargaining about wages at brigade level. We encourage that these good practices are nurtured and continued. This will be further detailed in the full report. Economic growth in Uzbekistan would enable further reforms in education, health, infrastructure, and other areas. These reforms need to be supported by the international community. Trade and investment decisions by responsible international companies are likely to benefit the further abolition of the legacies of the centrally planned economy. They can also have a positive impact on compliance with international labor standards. And as the ILO Director General said in his speech, the ILO encourages responsible sourcing from Uzbekistan of textiles and garments, and we stand ready to facilitate that process. So again, the ILO third-party monitoring comes down to three key issues: credibility, results, and recommendations. Our methodology is scientific, evidence-based, and independent. We collaborate with Uzbek civil society activists who are on the ground and who understand the local context. The results show a clear and significant drop in forced labor compared to last year. Still lots of work to do, but Uzbek cotton is now free from systematic forced labor and systematic child labor. Our recommendations include criminal prosecutions, continued liberalization of the cotton sector, and further steps in terms of freedom of association, collective bargaining, and registration of civil society organizations. We also encourage responsible sourcing of textiles and garments from Uzbekistan. Credibility, results, and recommendations. Thank you very much. On this note, I wish to give the floor to Sukrat Ganiev, who has been doing the monitoring with us for the last 4 years. Sukrat, over to you.
Спасибо большое. Меня слышно, да? Надеюсь. Все слышно? Да, окей. Хорошо. Спасибо, и дали огромный кусок моей презентации, чему я очень рад. С чего бы я хотел начать? Конечно, я присоединяюсь к тем благодарностям к нашим основным партнерам. Это в правительстве, Министерство труда и занятости, Сенат и, естественно, Международная организация труда в лице Йонаса Аструба, Оксаны Рекана в Узбекистане. Также я приношу свою благодарность донорскому партнерскому составу, Всемирному банку, Евросоюзу, посольствам Швейцарии, Германии, Соединенных Штатов и Евросоюза. Без этой помощи, без этого партнерства проект был бы неосуществим. Мы гражданские активисты, и для нас было очень важно видеть изменение ситуации в глазах и высказываниях людей. Поэтому методология была построена с точки зрения качественности. Не количество, а качество, потому что в ходе качества огромное внимание можно было обратить на эмоции людей, на их мнение и поймать ту струну, о которой нам очень важно узнать сегодня. Что думает общество об этих изменениях? Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Этот год для нас был важен еще тем, что в этом году мониторинг проводится независимым социальным предприятием, консалтинговой мониторинговой группой в составе 17 наших экспертов. И мы имели возможность свободного доступа ко всем данным, свободного партнерства и возможности проведения дистанционного мониторинга. Также, кроме этого, предприятие имеет на сегодня очень уникальную для гражданского общества возможность готовить экспертов, сертифицировать их и готовить команды людей на будущее не только в отрасли сельского хозяйства для мониторинга принудительного труда, но и во всех других секторах экономики. Следующий слайд, если можно. Сам мониторинг разделялся в основном, составлял для целевой группы граждан Узбекистана в возрасте от 18 до 50 лет. Мониторинг проводился с помощью телефонного интервью и был дистанционным вследствие пандемии COVID-19. Методы выборки телефонов опирались на случайную систематическую стратифицированную выборку пользователей мобильных телефонов операторов Республики Узбекистан. Следующий слайд, если можно. Я хотел бы более подробно остановиться на выводах, которые мы сделали как группа гражданских активистов, как мониторов в ходе нашей работы. Самый главный вывод для нас и из года в год, и Йонас Аструб это подчеркивает, и мы подтверждаем, случаев участия детей в сборе хлопка не отмечено. Я хочу привести одну интересную реплику респондента женщины. Кстати, женщины составляли большинство сборщиц традиционно. Если дети на поле окажутся, я останусь без работы, мне так и объяснил наш бригадир. И это очень важный момент, поскольку мы были свидетелями того, как правительство в лице инспекции труда, в лице представителей Министерства труда и занятости развернуло огромную работу, информационную кампанию по предупреждению искоренения детского труда и вообще присутствия детей на поле. И мы это видели и отмечали в ответах респондентов. Другой важный вывод. Принудительного труда не наблюдалось. Те случаи в составе 1% требуют еще более внимательного рассмотрения, поскольку можно ли их отнести непосредственно к принудительному труду или это какие-то косвенные признаки, тоже вопрос. Мониторинг показал все-таки достаточно много нареканий со стороны сборщиков на условия труда. И именно отсутствие надлежащего места отдыха или места приема пищи, туалетов, транспорта, средств гигиены для женщин. Учитывая, что все-таки от 70 до 75% сборщиц – это женщины и молодые женщины, необходимо, наверное, фокусироваться именно на условиях создания труда женщин на поле. В первую очередь, это санитарно-гигиенические условия, возможности отдыха. Я хотел отметить отдельно механизм обратной связи. Да, из года в год, в течение 5 лет мы проводим мониторинг как гражданские активисты. И благодаря нашему партнерству каждый из наших экспертов имел статус и мандат национального эксперта по принудительному труду с выдачей бейджев, что очень упрощало нашу деятельность и делало ее более безопасной. Но механизм обратной связи, который был налажен между Министерством труда и занятости в лице инспекторов, между Федерацией профсоюзов и отдельно экспертами-юристами, он показывает свою эффективность не только как своевременное реагирование на те или иные запросы респондентов, но он еще нес огромный информационный пласт. То есть люди узнавали о своих правах из этого механизма, узнавали о том, что они могут сделать и как они могут добиваться тех или иных улучшений условий для себя. Следующий слайд. Спасибо большое. Рекомендации. На основании проведенного мониторинга и проведенных опросов, анализа и обработки мы пришли к выводу, что необходимо все-таки создавать более гибкий механизм реагирования на достойный размер оплаты за собранный хлопок. Здесь уже говорилось о том, что ценообразование хлопка в этом году было более выгодным. И сборщики получали на уровне учителей, вузов довольно-таки неплохие деньги. Но все-таки необходимо, мне кажется, согласовывать это с коэффициентом инфляции и с ростом цен на продукты питания, на основные продукты питания. Поскольку многие респонденты говорили о том, что цены на рынках выросли, и мы хотели бы получить, соответственно, какие-то большие размеры оплаты за свой труд. И я думаю, что это необходимо учитывать в будущем. Обязательно. Ценообразование также должно быть привязано к рыночным механизмам. И если представители кластеров или отдельных фермерских хозяйств начинают заключать договор с работником, они должны делать это путем коллективного обсуждения и, безусловно, в присутствии юристов или правоведов. В фокусе опросов, как я уже отмечал, на следующий мониторинг мы думаем, необходимо поставить уже условия труда. Учитывая тот минимум рисков для принудительного и детского труда, необходимо изменять вопросники в анкетах с таким фокусом, чтобы мы больше придавали значение организации мест отдыха, питания, организации санитарно-гигиенических норм и особенностей, конечно же, для женщин-сборщиц. Мне кажется, это будет очень важно на следующий сезон сбора. Махаля, как уже отмечал предыдущий выступающий, часто является местом, где заключаются какие-то контракты. И в глазах сборщика ошибочно махаля становится работодателем. И часто, когда возникают какие-то конфликты, недостаток выданных денег или какие-то другие трудовые споры, люди бегут разбираться в махалю. И это отмечали многие респонденты. Необходима более широкая информационная кампания, на мой взгляд, среди сборщиков в период найма, чтобы сборщик четко представлял, кто является работодателем и на каких условиях заключаются договора между работодателем и работником. Конечно же, здесь возникает и вопрос о создании независимых ассоциаций, защищающих интересы сборщиков. И я думаю, это также могло бы стать вопросом для рассмотрения. Ну и последний вопрос, который я хотел бы поднять, это отмечалось во многих респондентских ответах в ходе опросов, дилемма. Например, сборщики выражали тревогу. А что, если завтра кластеры будут оснащены и механизированы до такой степени, когда наш труд им будет не нужен? Где мы будем зарабатывать в селе во время сезона сбора хлопка, если придут на поля машины? И в то же время опросы представителей кластеров и фермеров показывают, что они полностью хотели бы заменить ручной труд машинным. И понятно, поскольку для бизнеса это гораздо выгоднее. Мне кажется, здесь также необходима более широкая информационная кампания, которая показала бы людям выгоды, которые приносит кластер, открывая свои производства, открывая свои полные циклы текстильных производств на местах, с тем, чтобы люди были полностью заняты на этом. И это вот те рекомендации, которые мы хотели бы отметить. Благодарю за внимание. Спасибо большое.
Thank you, Yanis and Shukrat, for all your excellent work taking place. A further deep dive on this report will be undertaken on the 29th of March. The colleague who spoke earlier, Ms. Olga Koliva, will be holding a roundtable discussion on that, so please stay tuned to that. At this time, I'd like to introduce the ambassadors who are of the governments and institutions that have been supporting the work through the funding, the generous funding for this project. I'd like to start with His Excellency, Mr. Daniel Rosenblum, Ambassador of the United States to Uzbekistan. Ambassador.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks very much. And appreciate the invitation from the ILO today and for you organizing this forum. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak to everyone. I think everyone is aware that the fight against forced labor has been a key priority of the US government and of our embassy in Tashkent for many, many years. My own involvement in this issue actually began at least 6 or 7 years ago when I was still based in Washington working on Central Asia. And it's been really gratifying to see the progress over time. Many people on this call today deserve credit for the remarkable progress that's been observed, especially over the past 5 years. Through the third-party monitoring projects, the ILO and the World Bank have provided objective and reliable data about the conditions of cotton pickers in Uzbekistan. I know that the methodology has been refined over time, and as Mr. Ostro presented, I think it really we can truly say that data, the ability to quantify and also have qualitative data has made a huge difference in both encouraging and promoting progress to eradication of forced labor. So the ILO and World Bank deserve a lot of the credit. Obviously, civil society leaders like Shukrat Ganiyev and his colleagues and many others have played an increasing role in this effort. And I also want to give credit to our civil society partners internationally, including the members of the Cotton Campaign Coalition, for their ongoing engagement over many years and pushing for progress on this issue. And of course, my colleagues from the other embassies here in Tashkent, from other governments, have provided critical financial support and political support for these efforts. But finally, as we're mentioning credit for this success story, what I would characterize as a success story, the Chairwoman Narbayeva and her National Commission on Countering Human Trafficking and Forced Labor get huge amount of credit for what we've witnessed over the years. I first met Senator Narbayeva when she was chairman of the Federation of Trade Unions, when in 2015, I believe, when I visited Uzbekistan. So she has been at this for many years in different capacities and has really been a leader in this effort, which has been made possible not only by the government's efforts, but also by the political will from the top of the government of Uzbekistan. So even as we recognize today the incredible progress that Uzbekistan has made in labor rights, I want to stress that there is room for continued improvement and continued work, as some of the speakers have already noted. I'm sure all of us would agree that international and civil society monitoring have played an important role in achieving these results. And we believe that continued monitoring is necessary to lock in this progress in the future. We're very pleased that ILO has built capacity and has handed over monitoring activities to Mr. Ganiyev and his fellow civil society leaders. And we look forward to supporting their efforts going forward. We also plan at our embassy to continue our own small-scale observation of the harvest, the cotton harvest, which we've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years at least. And we hope and expect that the government of Uzbekistan will recognize the positive impact of such efforts and continue to be supportive. I also want to note that promoting freedom of association in Uzbekistan will also help ensure that there is no backsliding, that progress is locked in and continues. Cotton pickers and other workers should be able to freely organize to ensure that their rights are protected. It appears, as Jonas Astrup noted, that we're already seeing some signs, a positive impact of grassroots organizing in the cotton harvest. There have been reports of pickers receiving higher wages by informally bargaining with brigade leaders. So encouraging such efforts and formalizing them will safeguard the progress that Uzbekistan has made. And finally, allowing registration, easing the requirements for registration of both local and international NGOs that promote freedom of association. By doing this, the government of Uzbekistan would send a strong signal that it is committed to deepening the labor reforms and the progress to date. So in conclusion, again, thank you for the invitation today. It is a day to, I think, celebrate success and give credit where credit is due, and also to reiterate our collective commitment to supporting the government of Uzbekistan and the workers of Uzbekistan to promote labor rights for many years to come. So thank you again.
Ambassador Rosenblum, thank you very much for your insights, and thank you very much for mentioning about the enabling rights of freedom of association, collective bargaining. This is the next step forward. At this time, it's my honor to introduce Her Excellency, Ms. Charlotte Adrian, the Ambassador of the European Union to Uzbekistan. Madam Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and I would like to also thank for the opportunity to be here today, and also to give our view, in fact, the EU view on this program, but also on this reform. And first of all, let me maybe say that, in fact, I was in Tajikistan 10 years ago and remember coming to Uzbekistan. And in fact, I was not in a trade movement, I was in the EU. But I remember thinking that, yes, I mean, it was not only, first of all, it was not only adults in the cotton fields, but it was also children. So I think this is the result, which is really a tangible result. And I'd like to say, what is it that we have as main donors that we have really appreciated, and why we wanted, in fact, to finance this, and why we are so proud, in fact, to have the opportunity to say that this is a success today. And I think what is important in this case is that we've seen the comprehensive approach, in fact, that has been taken in this problem, which I mean, forced labor, child labor is a problem that concerns people on the ground. And what we've seen is that by taking it in a comprehensive way, by looking at all the aspects around the question of child labor and forced labor, working with all the stakeholders around the question, being it prosecutors or being it working with the civil society, working with in fact making civil society, but also working with the inspectors, working with, of course, the parliament, the government, and also, of course, in fact, the joint up cooperation between the international community, I think has also been the way to make it a success. Of course, the first and foremost for us is that there has to be a will. And then we, and again, believe that when there's a will, there is a way. And we've seen that this is possible. And I'd like to just maybe say that this has been a 5 years adventure. I mean, for 5 or a bit, maybe more, about 6, maybe. I have not seen them from the beginning, like Daniel Rosenblum, Ambassador Rosenblum. But what I can see is that going to the fields in November, as we did with our team, not participating in, I mean, just going and seeing, not doing as the American embassy has done, really, I mean, checking everywhere, but we could see that, yes, I mean, there is definitely a completely different position as there was before. Now, from our side, what is really is also, of course, really important is that, as was mentioned before, the different, several things, as was mentioned by Anna Pierre from the World Bank. Uzbekistan was granted GSP Plus last year. And that means, of course, an incentive to implement not only let's say, an opportunity for more trade, better trade, export, import, to the EU, but definitely also, of course, an incentive for implementing the 27 conventions. And within these conventions, of course, we have the labor conventions, we have the human rights conventions, and it is a crucial, in fact, that we now, and it was only last year that we now have the opportunity also to continue to monitor. We have normally, if things are happening as planned, we will have a GSP plus monitoring mission coming in within the next few weeks. It's not the cotton campaign time, but there will be opportunities also to talk to people. There will be opportunity to talk to civil society. And this will again be an opportunity to sort of monitor and continue the monitoring, which remains important. We like this project also because, in fact, there is an exit to it, but we also believe that there is an important point in continuing to monitor, not from our side only, but also definitely from civil society. And of course, we hope that the very good evidence-based and the reports from the inspectorate, which I understand are now becoming annual, will also continue. Maybe one of the last points that I would like to also mention, which is exactly the same as Ambassador Rosenblum was saying, is that what we have seen in this program, it's really about the process as well, has been to see the possibility, in fact, of a bit more freedom of association, extremely important, but also seeing civil society organizations that that have been, in fact, also created and are being active. And this is maybe one of the things that we want to also in the future look at. We're continuing to look at the EU, which is making sure that civil society organizations or people who want to gather and have the opportunity to do so in the future. And civil society registration continues to be a problem, an issue. And this we definitely would like to also continue to work with the authorities on. Definitely, this is something that we are partnering about. This is something that we'd like to continue to work with the authorities about. And this is something which is part of our strategy for the future. So we will continue to look positively. We're very happy to have seen the progress. We're looking forward also to see what the better work program will be about. And finally, what I would like to say is that I would like to congratulate all of you. I mean, all of you partners, being it ILO, being it the civil society, but of course, as was mentioned also, the authorities who have really, I mean, with Mrs. Nabayeva, Chairperson Nabayeva, who has really been the motor also for making this happening. I think it's important that we have this comprehensive approach, which has been this, which has made this a success. With this, I'd like to say that EU will continue to work on agriculture and obviously also on following up on GSP Plus, making sure that we can support people and support. So with this, I'd like to say that thank you very much, and I give the word for the next. Thank you.
Ambassador Adrian, thank you so much for your thoughts and recommendations. At this time, I'd like to introduce His Excellency Mr. Konstantin Obolensky, the Ambassador to Switzerland, of Switzerland to Uzbekistan. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this online meeting dedicated to the issue of child and forced labor in the cotton industry of Uzbekistan. This is a very important topic, and let us not forget that a few years ago only, forced and child labor were a big and systemic issue in this country. It has affected every year about 2.5 million people in a country of 35 million. School and university students, state employees from various sectors like health and education and others. The situation was criticized rightly and consistently, both in Uzbekistan as well as by the international community. With strong political will emerging in Uzbekistan, it took few years to eliminate forced and child labor. This was also supported by Uzbekistan's ratification of all fundamental ILO conventions, and the situation with forced labor improved when the ILO third-party monitoring mechanism was introduced in full scale. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank ILO and all state partners, particularly Her Excellency Madame Narbaeva, Head of Senate, for their great support to this project's success. When the multi-donor trust fund in the program was established, Switzerland was one of the first donors to support the fund from the launch of the program. But what are the lessons learned? Well, joint efforts by several development partners together with the government of Uzbekistan can lead to substantial and tangible results in the reform process. Progress is possible when all stakeholders are involved and capacitated. A strong rule of law is key to guarantee the protection of potential victims of forced labor from any kind of oppression and force. And finally, it confirms that civil society plays a crucial role, both in pressuring for change and then also in the monitoring of the reforms. In the future, an independent monitoring by civil society organizations should be continued. Switzerland stands ready to support civil society organizations and also state agencies in the monitoring process. Through this engagement, Switzerland has supported tangible results that have a direct impact on the lives of millions of people. And as in the past, peace, social cohesion, and prosperity continue to be an essential aim of Swiss foreign policy in Uzbekistan and beyond. Thank you, and over.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your kind words and for your vision for the future and collaboration. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Alice Wulken. She is the head of mission for the Embassy of Germany to Uzbekistan. Ms. Wulken, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's participating in today's calls, my colleagues, international organizations, and relevant actors in Uzbekistan. I'm happy to be here to witness and listen to this, last ILO-led report on independent monitoring in Uzbekistan. And we from the German embassy are also very much looking forward to the continued path in the cotton sector in Uzbekistan. As well, it has been mentioned by my previous speakers, there is still work to do, but I think for now, there's no harm in mentioning again that it is very pleasing for us to see the findings of the ILO, stating that the overall conditions of the cotton harvest, especially for pickers, has bettered yet again, even in these pandemic times that we're still in. These changes during the past 7 years, with support of ILO, World Bank, and the international partners, are really a model project of the Uzbek government and really an unprecedented effort, not only in this sector, but in any other sector, by a government, by Ms. Narbaeva, by her colleagues, and everyone involved and here in this conference today. It showcases, and I think there's no harm in saying that again, that great change can be achieved when different actors work towards the same goal. And the eradication of systematic child labor and forced labor has now almost been achieved in Uzbekistan, and Uzbekistan is already on the path of solidifying these changes by, in our opinion, rightfully giving ownership to the involved parties, and of course, involving the civil society and giving respect to human rights, the right of association, the right of free speech, and the right of also criticizing cases of child labor, forced labor that are still being witnessed. So liberalizing the cotton sector and involving these organizations is something that we can highly support as the work of the independent monitoring continues here in Uzbekistan. Now, when it comes to Germany, German companies are also paying close attention to the development in the cotton sector, especially now that Uzbekistan has diversified its cotton processing capacities and moved to cotton clusters. This year, new German legislation came into force, and not only in Germany, but Germany is, I think, the third or fourth country in Europe, which requires companies to do due diligence in the entire global supply chain. And thankfully, respecting human rights and sustainable sourcing are becoming a factor in economic affairs more and more. So therefore, Uzbekistan's work in the past years is not only important for the strengthening of human rights in Uzbekistan, but can also be a real example for others in the cotton market, and of course brings great potential economically. And at the same time, of course, and hopefully, is a continued incentive for Uzbekistan to continue the work that they've already begun and the important steps that they've already made. So due to this, our embassy, of course, as well as the Federal Republic of Germany, fully support Uzbekistan's path to a sustainable cotton sector, and of course, a free labor market. Thank you.
Ms. Ulkan, thank you very much for your kind words and your insights on the progress in Uzbekistan. Before we close the session, I've been asked to give a few minutes to His Excellency Mr. Erkin Mukhitdinov, who is the first Deputy Minister of Employment and Labor Relations of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Sir, the floor is yours.
Dear participants of the online briefing, let me welcome all and thank our partners for organizing this important event for our country. Over the past 5 years, Uzbekistan has come a long way from massive forced labor to its total eradication. According to ILO third-party monitoring program, while in 2015-2016, the percentage of forced labor in the cotton company was 13%, or almost 400,000 people. When it gradually declined, and now you heard it, it's about 1%. So as Mr. Astor put it, it couldn't be zero. Could you hear me? So it's a good news. So no any reason left to say there is a systematic forced labor in Uzbekistan. So together we eradicate it. Of course, we want to thank our partners which support us for these years. Of course, it's ILO, United States, European Union, Germany, Switzerland, World Bank, and our donors. Of course, it's a great effort of our national partners, National Commission for Forced Labor, social partners, human rights activists, mass media, etc. It was not easy. It was a very hard way. Many things started from the important speech of our president, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, on the 72nd session of United Nations Assembly, when he declared a strong political will to fight with forced labor together with ILO and many our partners. We made many things for these years. Of course, it's legislative changes, increasing administrative and imposing criminal responsibility for forced labor, enhance the potential of our labor inspection, working with human rights activists on the cotton fields, developing market mechanisms, instruments on cotton industry, etc. All of it made a great job. Now we can say that we have a success story of Uzbekistan in combating forced labor. It's very important. And I hope we'll soon hear good news about Cotton Pledge also. So thank you very much, our dear partners, friends. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to turn to my colleague, Ms. Olga Koliva, if you would please provide us with some overviews as we close this session. Olga? Thank
you very much, Kevin. I would like to turn to Erkin Madarbekovich and thank him in my turn and echo your Excellency's ambassadors. Yes, there was a political will at the highest possible level in Uzbekistan. It was tremendous effort of the head of Senate, and we thank Mrs. Narbayeva for her role in this long-term and complex process. But also our partners at the Ministry of Employment and the social partners in Uzbekistan. ILO and Uzbekistan signed in September of last year a decent work country program. This is a frame of our cooperation with our member states. I have to remind everyone, and everyone of course remembers it very well, the ILO has 8 fundamental conventions, and they, together with other international labor standards, are in the center, at the heart of this decent work country program, which we are now implementing together with our tripartite constituents. The TPM project was an important part of this process. It was instrumental to advancement on a very important direction, but it's not the only one. So I have to say that now we are working on the successful implementation of international labor standards in a larger scale in Uzbekistan. And Convention 87, the Convention on Freedom of Association, has already been mentioned, together with employment promotion, social protection, strengthening of national institutions of labor inspection, and our social partners. This is in principle the essence, the contents of this Decent Work Country program, and valuing our partnership with the World Bank and all those member states which contributed to this success. We count on future cooperation on these important subject areas as well. Thank you very much for the job done so far altogether. Thank you.
Olga, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to hear so many interesting aspects of the work that's taken place and so many actors who are participating, knowing that local human rights defenders will ensure that Uzbek cotton will remain free from child and forced labor. The idea of opening up the markets after so much hard work has been done by the government to ensure further economic progress and social progress. To know that when our efforts are around a common cause, that we're able to change so much in such a short period of time. The emergence of social dialogue, the reliable data of the project itself, the importance of the enabling rights of freedom association, collective bargaining, our comprehensive approach, our joint collaboration. And at the pinnacle of all of that is the political will, which is absolutely essential for progress to be made here. Without that, none of the successes that we have seen would have been possible. I am Kevin Cassidy, the director of the ILO Office for the United States and Canada. It's been a great pleasure to host this event. I'd like to thank Jonas Astrup and Shukrat Ganev. I'd like to also thank Ambassador Rosenblum, Ambassador Adrian, Ambassador Obolensky, and Ms. Alice Volkin, as well as His Excellency Mr. Erkin Mokidinov, to Olga and to others, but particularly to the World Bank Vice President, Anna Breda, for your support, and to Mr. Guy Ryder for his words, but most importantly to the Uzbek government, and particularly Madam Narbayeva. This would not be possible without your commitment and long-term vision to this. So I am most grateful to have met you, to have worked with you, and to see this day come. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let us see a new beginning in Uzbekistan.